You've felt this before, even if you've never said it out loud. You walk into a room full of people. Conversations are happening, deals are forming. Power is moving quietly from one person to another, and somehow, you're not part of it. No one interrupts you, but no one really listens either. You're polite, you're competent, you've done what you were told was right, and yet, the people who matter seem to orbit around someone else. You've probably blamed timing, or luck, or maybe yourself. You told yourself, if I just work harder, if I stay genuine, if I prove my value long enough, someone will notice. But here's the uncomfortable truth most people never say out loud. Powerful people don't build relationships the way you think. They are not looking for friends. They are not impressed by effort. And they are not moved by intentions. What they respond to, what they feel instantly, is leverage, alignment, and emotional positioning. That's why you can watch two people with the same skills, the same background, even the same intelligence, and see one invited inside the circle, while the other remains permanently outside, waiting, hoping, explaining. This isn't about morality. It's not about being fake, and it's definitely not about becoming someone's servant or admirer. It's about understanding a game that has always been there, quietly, running beneath every boardroom, every industry, every inner circle. 500 years ago, Niccolo Machiavelli wrote, "The Prince, not as a handbook for villains, but as a manual for reality." He understood something most people still resist today. Human beings, especially powerful ones, are driven by self-interest, fear, vanity, and perception. Ignore this, and you will always be peripheral. Understand it, and you stop feeling invisible. In this video, we're going to strip away the comforting myths you've been taught about networking and being yourself. If they fall, what follows are 13 ruthless laws that explain how real relationships with powerful people are actually formed, not in theory, but in practice. These are not tips. They are not etiquette. They are psychological mechanics. And once you see them clearly, you won't look at powerful people the same way again. You'll stop seeing them as untouchable figures above you and start seeing patterns you can work with. Fair warning, this changes how you move in the world. But if you've ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or quietly excluded, this is where things start to make sense. Law: I never outshine the master. The fastest way to be quietly eliminated from a powerful person's world is to make them feel smaller in your presence. Most people make this mistake without realizing it. They meet someone influential, and instinct takes over. They speak a little faster. They share their best ideas. They try to prove how sharp, capable, or impressive they are. They believe respect is earned by shining brighter. It isn't. Powerful people often sit on fragile identities. Their authority is built on being the smartest voice in the room, the visionary others defer to, the final decision maker. When you outshine them, even unintentionally, you don't look like value. You look like risk. And power does not tolerate perceived threats. Machiavelli warned that it is dangerous to appear more capable than your superior. Not because they are evil, but because insecurity activates self-preservation. They won't confront you openly. They will simply stop inviting you in. Opportunities disappear. Access dries up. You never know what you did wrong. The strategy is counterintuitive. Dim your light without diminishing your value. Let them take credit. Frame your insights as extensions of their thinking. Ask questions that allow them to arrive at conclusions you already see. Make them feel brilliant in your presence. This isn't submission, it's camouflage. When they feel superior, they relax. When they relax, defenses drop. And once you are perceived as safe, you are allowed behind the walls where real influence is built quietly, without applause. Let them have the spotlight. You take the leverage. Law 2, conceal your intentions. The moment your desire becomes visible, your leverage disappears. Most people walk into rooms of power wearing their needs on their faces. Their eyes reveal hunger, approval, money, opportunity, validation. And powerful people notice this instantly. A predictable person is easy to manage. An obvious motive is easy to exploit. Machiavelli understood this clearly. To be readable is to be controllable. When someone knows what you want, they can delay you, flatter you, or deny you without consequence. This is why desperation repels power. It signals dependence, and dependence collapses negotiation before it begins. To build real relationships with powerful people, you must become a cipher. Do not announce your ambitions. Do not rush to business. Speak about ideas, culture, philosophy, shared curiosities, anything that humanizes the interaction without revealing your end game. Let silence do some of the work. Let ambiguity create space. Mystery is not deception, it is restraint. When powerful people cannot place you, they become curious. When they cannot read you, they begin to project their own interests onto you. And projection creates attachment. Be warm, be intelligent, be engaged. But keep the core of your ambition sealed. Your true objectives belong in a vault, not on the table. The less they know about what you want, the more room you have to maneuver. Never show your cards before the pot is yours. Law 3. Appeal to self-interest, never to mercy. Power does not move because you deserve something. It moves because it gains something. This is where most people fail. When they need help, they lead with their struggle. They explain how hard they've worked, how unfair things have been, how much a chance would mean to them. They appeal to kindness, morality, or sympathy. And powerful people listen politely. Then they do nothing, not because they are cruel, but because mercy is expensive. Those at the top are surrounded by requests. If they responded to every deserving story, they would drown in obligation and distraction. Machiavelli was blunt about this reality. It is better to be needed than to be liked. If you want access, stop asking for favors. Start offering alliances. Every powerful person carries unresolved problems, rivals they want neutralized, systems that quietly leak money, projects that stall despite public confidence. Your task is not to explain your needs, but to identify theirs. When you speak, shift the frame completely. Not, here's what I need, but I see where you're stuck and I can remove friction. Now you are no longer a petitioner. You are a solution. Self-interest is the only language that never needs translation. Speak it fluently, and doors open without you ever knocking. Power rewards usefulness. Everything else is noise. Law 4. Master the art of strategic absence. Nothing loses value faster than constant availability. In a culture that celebrates instant replies and endless accessibility, most people believe presence equals commitment. They answer immediately. They accept every meeting. They are always around. What they don't realize is that overexposure quietly erodes respect. Power operates by a different logic. Scarcity creates value. Machiavelli observed that a ruler seen too often becomes ordinary. The same principle applies to relationships with powerful people. If you are always available, you signal that your time is cheap, and if your time is cheap, so are you. Strategic absence is not withdrawal out of insecurity. It is controlled distance. When you are present, be fully present, focused, engaged, calm. Make the interaction feel rare and undistracted. Then leave. Decline the follow-up meeting. Take time to respond. Let your schedule reflect a life that does not orbit theirs. This does two things. First, it communicates that you have options and priorities beyond them. Second, it creates an open loop in their mind. Your absence occupies mental space. They begin to wonder where you are, what you're building, who else values your time. When you return, your presence feels earned, not expected. Respect grows in the gaps. Learn when to step back, and power will step toward you. Law V. Become the mirror they trust. Everyone, no matter how powerful, is quietly in love with their own worldview. Leaders may appear confident or even humble, but beneath the surface they crave one thing above all else: to feel understood. Most people try to connect by talking about themselves, sharing stories, proving value, competing for attention. To someone with power, this registers as noise. Real connection begins when you stop broadcasting and start reflecting. Machiavelli understood the narcissism embedded in human nature. To gain influence, you must become a mirror, one that reflects a person's identity back to them, subtly enhanced. Match their tempo. If they speak quickly and decisively, sharpen your pace. If they are deliberate and reflective, slow down. Align your language with theirs. Use the metaphors they use. Adopt their posture, their rhythm, their emotional temperature. This is not imitation for approval. It is alignment for trust. When done well, mirroring bypasses logic and speaks directly to instinct. The subconscious registers familiarity. He thinks like me. He sees the world as I do. And familiarity breeds comfort. Comfort opens doors. People do not bond with those who challenge their identity. They bond with those who confirm it. When they look at you, let them see a clearer version of themselves. They will seek you out not for what you say, but for how you make them feel understood. Law 6. Control the flow of information. In every era, power belongs to those who control what others cannot see. In the past, that meant land and armies. Today, it means information specifically, timely, filtered, and private information. Powerful people are rarely short on opinions. What they lack is unvarnished truth. They are surrounded by agreement, insulated by hierarchy, and slowly disconnected from reality. This creates an opening. If you can become the person who brings them insight they cannot access elsewhere, your value multiplies. Not gossip, not speculation, signal over noise. Intelligence that protects their position, exposes blind spots, or gives them an edge before others react. This role requires discipline. You are not a messenger, you are a curator. Present information with precision. Frame it in terms of consequence. Here's what's shifting, here's why it matters, here's what it enables. When you do this consistently, you stop being peripheral. You become indispensable. But there is a rule within the rule. Never reveal all your sources. If they can obtain the same information without you, your leverage dissolves. Deliver the insight, not the map. Keep the pipeline discreet and exclusive. When you control the flow of information, you control relevance. And relevance is a quiet form of power that compounds over time. Law 7. Unite through a useful enemy. Nothing forges loyalty faster than a shared opposition. Machiavelli understood that alliances are rarely built on affection. They are built on alignment, and alignment is strongest when two people stand against the same force. Sociologists call this in-group versus out-group bias. Power simply calls it reality. If you want to build real relationships with powerful people, learn what frustrates them, what inefficiencies drain their time, which rivals undermine their vision, what systems, ideologies, or habits they believe are holding everything back. Then listen carefully and agree with precision. This is not about empty negativity or gossip. It is about validating their struggle. When you acknowledge the obstacles they face, you affirm their role as the one fighting chaos. You are saying, I see the enemy you're up against, and I'm on your side. That recognition is intoxicating. A shared enemy creates a quiet us versus them dynamic. It compresses distance. It accelerates trust. Conversations become more candid. Loyalty forms faster because it feels earned in the trenches of a common battle. But the enemy must be useful, not petty. The tone should be righteous, not bitter. You are not complaining. You are aligning values and direction. When two people define themselves against the same opposition, they stop being strangers. They become allies. Law 8. Play to their fantasy. People do not live in reality. They live in the story they tell themselves about who they are. Machiavelli understood this long before psychology gave it a name. Every powerful person carries a private self-image, often disconnected from their behavior, but fiercely protected. The ruthless executive sees himself as a benevolent builder. The chaotic visionary believes she is secretly disciplined. The insecure leader imagines himself as a savior. Your role is not to correct this fantasy, it is to support it. Power resists mirrors that reveal flaws. It gravitates toward mirrors that reinforce identity. If someone wants to be seen as wise, invite their advice. If they see themselves as a rebel, become the accomplice. If they imagine themselves a king, take the role of the loyal knight. This is not flattery, it is positioning. Reality is abrasive. Powerful people pay to avoid it through status, money, and insulation. If you become the one person who protects their self-image rather than threatening it, you become essential. You are no longer just useful, you are stabilizing, and people will protect what stabilizes them. Yes, this is manipulative. Power always is. But remember, you are not building friendship here. You are navigating a stage. Power is theater, and those who understand the script are invited backstage. Learn the fantasy, play the role. Law IX, master emotional alchemy. Powerful people live under constant pressure. They carry decisions that affect thousands of lives, millions of dollars, and entire reputations. Their internal state is rarely calm. It is a mix of urgency, anxiety, and suppressed fatigue. Most people make this worse. They bring problems. They bring drama. They add noise. If you want to become indispensable, do the opposite. Emotional alchemy is the ability to absorb chaos and return clarity. When a powerful person is frantic, you slow the tempo. When they are angry, you remain steady. When they feel overwhelmed, you reduce complexity instead of adding to it. This is not emotional passivity, it is control. Few things are more attractive to power than someone who lowers cortisol instead of raising it. When you say, "I understand the situation, here's the solution," it's handled. You are not just solving a problem, you are removing weight from their nervous system, and relief creates attachment. Over time, they stop associating you with tasks and start associating you with calm. Meetings with you feel lighter. Decisions feel clearer. They begin to crave your presence not because of what you do, but because of how you make them feel. In a world addicted to urgency, be unhurried. In a world full of fire, be water. If you can regulate the emotional climate around power, you quietly increase your value and your leverage. Law X. Assume formlessness. Rigid identities break under pressure. Flexible ones survive and move freely. Machiavelli praised the fox not for strength, but for adaptability. Power environments shift constantly. The rules change. The people change. What worked yesterday can make you obsolete tomorrow. If you cling too tightly to a fixed sense of who you are, you become predictable, and predictability invites control. Formlessness is the refusal to be trapped by a single role. Some situations require assertion, others require restraint. At times you must lead decisively, at others follow quietly. This is not inconsistency, it is strategic intelligence. You adapt your shape to the terrain without losing your core. People who insist on being themselves often confuse identity with ego. Ego demands expression. Power rewards calibration. Assume the culture of the room. Match formality without stiffness. Match casualness without sloppiness. Remove friction wherever possible. Make it easy for others to work with you, trust you, and integrate you into their world. When you have no fixed shape, you cannot be easily attacked. When you are fluid, you fit into spaces others cannot access. You become difficult to categorize and therefore difficult to dismiss. Formlessness is not invisibility. It is controlled presence. Those who master it move through power structures quietly, adapting without resistance, until the moment arrives to solidify exactly where it matters most. Law XI, make yourself indispensable. Power protects what it depends on. If you can be easily replaced, You are never safe, no matter how liked you are. Machiavelli understood that true security does not come from loyalty or goodwill, but from necessity. When your absence creates friction, anxiety, or loss, your position hardens. To become indispensable, you must move beyond contribution and into entanglement. Identify a function that is both critical and neglected, something essential to their success that others avoid, misunderstand, or cannot execute well. Then master it completely. Own it. Integrate yourself so deeply into that process that removing you would cause disruption. This is not about doing more work. It is about holding a unique key. Take ownership of systems, relationships, or knowledge that cannot be easily transferred. Become the bridge between the powerful person and something they value: clients, information, stability, or peace of mind. When you are the bridge, you cannot be burned without consequence. Do not rush to teach others how to replace you. Keep the skill complex. Keep the understanding layered. Independence is a myth in power dynamics. The real objective is mutual reliance. When they wake up at night and wonder what would happen if you were gone, you have succeeded. At that point, you are no longer peripheral. You are part of the structure itself. Law the 12th. Control the options. The most powerful person in the room is rarely the loudest. It is the one who defines the choices. Power does not come from issuing commands. It comes from shaping the framework in which decisions are made. When you present someone with unlimited options, you create confusion and fatigue. When you present a curated set, you guide outcomes without resistance. Machiavelli understood this principle intuitively. The one who writes the menu controls the appetite. Never ask powerful people open-ended questions like, "What do you want to do?" That forces them to think, deliberate, and take ownership of uncertainty. Instead, do the thinking for them. Present 2 or 3 paths, each clearly defined by risk and reward. Make the option you prefer appear inevitable, not through pressure, but through logic. This creates the illusion of control. They feel sovereign because they choose. You hold influence because you designed the road. This balance preserves their ego while advancing your agenda, a critical equilibrium in power relationships. When you consistently frame decisions this way, something subtle happens. They begin to trust your judgment before they even evaluate the options. Your role shifts from executor to architect. You are no longer responding to direction. You are shaping it. Control the frame, and the outcome follows. Those who define the choices rarely need to fight for authority, they quietly exercise it. Triển khai viết đoạn văn 13 luật Machiavelli. Bản đồ kết nối quyền lực. Bắt đầu viết phần 13-200 từ. Viết bằng tiếng Anh Mỹ. Law 13. Practice radical autonomy. The final paradox of power is this. To connect with powerful people, you must not need them. Neediness is perceptible. It leaks through tone, posture, timing, and hesitation. When your sense of worth depends on someone's approval, power detects it instantly and responds by placing you beneath it. Admiration invites dominance. Independence commands respect. Machiavelli understood that leverage belongs to the one who can walk away. Radical autonomy means having your own center of gravity, your own standards, your own vision, even if it is small, unfinished, or still forming. It means entering relationships to trade, not to beg. When you sit across from power knowing you will be fine without the outcome, everything shifts. Your voice steadies, your presence grounds. You stop performing. This does not make you arrogant. It makes you solid. Powerful people are surrounded by those who bend, adapt, and orbit. What they rarely encounter is someone who stands firmly respectful, composed, but unmoved by status. That solidity is magnetic. It signals equality of inner posture, even if external positions differ. When you no longer seek permission to exist, you stop being invisible. True connection forms only between those who meet from wholeness, not lack. The moment you stop needing power, power begins to take you seriously. This law activates all the others. Without it, the rest are tactics. With it, they become leverage. Conclusion. Application. Taken together, these 13 laws are not about manipulation for its own sake. They are about clarity. They strip away comforting myths about fairness, authenticity, and effort, and replace them with a more accurate map of how power actually works. Not how it should work, not how we wish it worked, but how it operates in rooms where decisions are made quietly and consequences are real. The central shift is this. You stop trying to be chosen and start positioning yourself to be useful, trusted, and irreplaceable. Notice how none of the laws require aggression, dominance, or cruelty. They require restraint, awareness, emotional control, strategic patience. Power, in this sense, is not loud. It is composed. It moves indirectly. Applied correctly, these laws don't turn you into a schemer. They turn you into someone who understands context, someone who reads incentives, someone who knows when to step forward, when to pull back, and when to remain silent. And just as important, someone who does not collapse internally when approval is withheld. How to apply this without losing yourself? The danger is not in knowing these laws. The danger is applying them unconsciously. Use them as lenses, not as masks. You are not required to perform every law at all times. The goal is discernment, knowing which dynamic you are in, and responding deliberately instead of reflexively. Power becomes corrosive only when it replaces your inner compass. When autonomy remains intact, strategy becomes self-protection, not self-erasure. Simple action exercise. Do this over the next 7 days. Audit one relationship where you feel invisible, undervalued, or overly eager. Ask yourself honestly, where am I too available? Where am I explaining instead of positioning? Where am I appealing to goodwill instead of value? Choose one law only to apply this week. Not all 13, just one. Strategic absence. Concealing intention. Appealing to self-interest. Emotional steadiness. Make one small behavioral shift. Delay a response. Reframe a request as a solution. Stop volunteering information that weakens your position. Enter a conversation calmer than the other person. That's it. No confrontation. No announcement. No dramatic change. Power accumulates quietly through consistency, not declarations. If you do this consciously, you'll notice something subtle but unmistakable. People begin responding to you differently. Not warmer, not friendlier, more carefully. And that's when you know the shift has begun. Power is rarely taken. It is granted quietly, selectively, and often without explanation. What these 13 laws offer is not permission to dominate, but the ability to stop being invisible. They replace confusion with orientation. You begin to understand why certain doors never opened, why effort alone wasn't enough, and why some people seem to move effortlessly through spaces that once felt closed to you. This is not about becoming ruthless in character. It is about becoming precise in behavior. When you no longer chase approval, you regain posture. When you stop explaining yourself, you regain leverage. When you build from autonomy instead of hunger, relationships recalibrate naturally. Power responds to those who are internally settled, who can stand without leaning, speak without rushing, and walk away without resentment. That composure is what separates players from pieces. You do not need to apply every law. You only need to see them. Awareness alone changes how you move, what you tolerate, and what you no longer offer freely. From that point on, connection stops being a plea and becomes an exchange. Not emotional, not moral, strategic and clean. The map is now in front of you. What you do next is no longer about knowledge, but discipline. And discipline, applied quietly over time, is where power actually begins.